forget the romance of the skull and crossbones. Forget the swashbuckling adventures, the chests overflowing with gold, and the idyllic life of freedom on the high seas. The reality of a pirate's life was not a grand adventure. It was a short, brutal, and often disgusting existence in a floating wooden prison. Tonight, we will not tell the tales of legendary captains and their fabled treasures. We will tell the story of the common man, the forgotten sailor who found himself under the black flag. We will explore the gnawing hunger, the rampant disease, the iron-fisted discipline of the pirate code, and the soul-crushing boredom that filled the long, empty weeks between moments of savage violence. This is the story of what it truly meant to be a pirate in the Golden Age, a journey into the dark, grimy, and desperate heart of history's most romanticized criminals. Now, before we are captured and given the choice to join this brutal brotherhood, and you get comfortable for the night, if you enjoy this kind of immersive journey into the past, please take a moment to leave a like and to subscribe. But only if you genuinely find value in what we do here. And as always, I would love to know from what part of the world you are listening tonight, and what time it is where you are. Feel free to leave it in the comments. It is a quiet fascination to see our community of night owls and history lovers spread across the globe. All right, the time has come. Find your most comfortable position, dim the lights, let the anxieties of the modern world fade away, and let us join a young man named Jack on the deck of a merchant ship in the Caribbean in the year 1718. He believes his life is hard. He has no idea how much worse it is about to get. The heat is a physical weight. It presses down on your shoulders, on the back of your neck, a relentless, suffocating blanket of humid air. The sun, a white-hot coin in a cloudless, pale blue sky, beats down on the deck of the merchant brig, the Good Intent. The pitch in the seams of the deck planks has gone soft in the heat, and it sticks to the soles of your bare feet. You are Jack. You are 18 years old, and your life is an endless cycle of toil and misery. For the past years since you left the grimy, crowded streets of London, your world has been this small, creaking wooden vessel. You are a common sailor, and your life is measured in the changing of the watches, the ringing of the ship's bell, and the constant, burning ache in your muscles. Your day began, as it always does, before dawn. You were roused from your damp hammock in the forecastle by the sharp, angry voice of the boatswain. Your breakfast was the usual, a piece of hardtack biscuit, so hard you have to soak it in water to make it edible, and a mug of weak, bitter beer. The work is relentless. You've spent the morning scrubbing the decks on your hands and knees with a block of sandstone or holdstone. Until your knuckles are raw, you've been ordered into the rigging, your bare feet finding their holds on the tarred ropes to mend a small tear in a sail. The ship rolling sickeningly beneath you, the blue-green water a dizzying, fatal distance below. The discipline is brutal. The ship's officers, men who seemed to belong to a different species, patrol the deck with the constant simmering anger. A moment's hesitation, a misunderstood command, and the punishment is swift and severe. You have seen a man flogged for a minor infraction, his back laid open by the cat-o'-nine-tails, the sound of the whip a sharp, wet crack that you still hear in your sleep. The food is a constant gnawing disappointment. The salted beef is tough and stringy. The water in the casks is stale and has a faint, unpleasant taste. You're always hungry. A low-level, persistent ache in your stomach that never truly goes away. You are not a free man. You are trapped in this wooden world, bound by a contract you barely understood for a wage that is barely enough to survive on. You look out at the endless, glittering expanse of the Caribbean Sea, and you do not see beauty. You see a vast, empty prison. It is in the midst of this afternoon's monotonous labor, tarring a section of the ship's railing under the burning sun, that the cry comes from the lookout in the Crown's Nest. It is a sound that cuts through the mundane rhythm of the ship's life, a sound of pure, unadulterated terror. Sail whole! A black sail! The words black sail spread across the deck of the Good Intent like a disease. The monotonous rhythm of the day shatters instantly. Men stop their work, their faces pale under their sun-darkened skin, their eyes wide with a shared, unspoken terror. The officers begin shouting orders, their voices sharp and strained with a fear they are trying to conceal. You turn and look out at the horizon. You see it. A small, fast sloop, its sails dyed a stark, menacing black, is closing on you with an unnatural speed. It flies no national flag, only a simple, terrifying banner that is now becoming horribly clear as it draws nearer. A white skull and crossbones on a black field. Pirates. The captain of the Good Intent, a man you have only ever seen as a remote, godlike figure, is now a frantic, sweating mortal shouting contradictory orders. "Load the cannons," he screams, "but you only have 2 small cannons." And the men who are supposed to man them are fumbling with the powder and shot, their hands trembling too much to be effective. "Make more sail," he cries, but the pirate ship is faster, more nimble. It is a predator, and you are a slow, fat merchant vessel, heavy with sugar and rum from the Indies. There is no escape. The pirate ship is alongside you now. It is a chaotic, terrifying sight. The deck is crowded with men, a motley, savage-looking crew. They are not the clean uniformed sailors of the Royal Navy. They are dressed in a ragged collection of stolen clothes, their faces burned by the sun, scarred by old wounds, and framed by wild, unkempt beards. They are armed to the teeth with cutlasses, with pistols, with long, brutal-looking boarding axes, and they are screaming a raw, animalistic howl that is designed to do one thing: to paralyze you with fear. A volley of musket fire erupts from the pirate ship, the sound a sharp, deafening crackle. Splinters of wood fly from the railing next to your head. A man beside you cries out and clutches his arm, a dark red stain spreading across his sleeve. Then the grappling hooks fly, great iron claws on the ends of thick ropes that bite into the wood of your ship, pulling the 2 vessels together with a sickening, grinding crunch. And then they are aboard. It is not a battle. It is a slaughter. The pirates swarm over the railing, their faces a mask of crazed, violent joy. Your crew, a collection of underfed, poorly armed merchant sailors, is no match for these hardened, desperate men. The resistance is brief and pathetic. The captain is cut down in the first few moments, his fine coat no protection for a pirate's cutlass. You and the other surviving sailors drop your weapons and fall to your knees, your hands raised in surrender. The pirates move among you, their faces flushed with victory. They are laughing, shouting, their eyes wild. One of them holds the point of his sword to your throat, the cold steel a terrifying reality against your skin. You close your eyes, certain that this is your final moment. But the killing stops. The pirate captain, a huge man with a great black beard and a single dead-looking eye, calls his men to order. The immediate hot-blooded violence is over. Now the cold, calculated business begins.
The pirates ransack the ship, breaking into the cargo hold and bringing up the barrels of rum and the sacks of sugar. They take everything of value, the ship's instruments, the captain's personal effects, any coins or jewelry they can find on the officers. Then they turn their attention to you, the surviving crew. You are lined up on the main deck, your hands bound. The pirate captain walks down the line, his one good eye appraising each of you, not as a man, but as a potential asset. He is looking for skilled men, a carpenter, a cooper, a navigator. He stops in front of you. He can see that you are young, strong, and accustomed to the life of a sailor. He gives you a grim, humorless smile that reveals a row of yellow, broken teeth. He offers you the choice. "You can join us," he says, his voice a low growl. "Live a short life, but a merry one. A life of plunder and freedom. Or," he gestures with his cutlass to the distant, hazy shape of a small, uninhabited island on the horizon, "you can be left there, with a bottle of water and your own thoughts." It is not a choice. To be marooned is a sentence of slow, certain death by thirst or starvation. You look at the hard, merciless faces of the pirates. You look at the bodies of your own captain and crewmates lying in pools of blood on the deck, and you look at the endless, indifferent ocean. The dream of a new life in Virginia is dead. It has been replaced by a new, more brutal reality. You are a sailor on a merchant ship no longer. With a hoarse, trembling voice that you do not recognize as your own, you make the only choice you can. You choose to become a pirate.
Your old life ends the moment you take the oath. There is no formal ceremony. The pirate captain simply gathers the new recruits, you among them, on the blood-soaked deck. He holds up a cutlass. You are made to place your hand on the cold steel of the blade and swear allegiance to the crew, to the Brotherhood of the Coast, and to the articles of the ship, the Pirate Code. You swear to fight alongside them, to obey the captain and the quartermaster, and to keep their secrets, on pain of death. And just like that, you are no longer Thomas Miller, a sailor from London. You're a pirate, a man with no king, no country, and no future beyond the next prize. You are given your duties. You are a sailor, so your skills are put to immediate use. But this is not the merchant service. The work is harder, the pace more frantic. The pirate ship is a weapon, and it must be kept in a constant state of readiness. You learn to work the sails with a new speed, to climb the rigging in the dark, to handle the heavy, cumbersome cannons. But the most profound change is not in the work. It is in your world. Your new home is the Sea Venture, and it is a floating wooden prison. You are moved from the cramped forecastle of the merchant ship to the even more crowded living quarters of the pirate sloop. There are no hammocks here. You sleep where you can find a space, on the hard wooden deck, wedged between a cannon and the curve of the hull, with only a thin, rough blanket for comfort. The 'tween deck, where most of the crew sleeps, is a vision of hell. The ceiling is so low that you cannot stand up straight, forced into a permanent, stooped posture. The air is a thick, warm, and foul soup of human smells. It is the smell of over 100 unwashed men crammed into a space designed for a third of that number. It is the smell of stale rum, of cheap tobacco smoke, of bilge water seeping up through the floorboards, and of the chamber pots that are rarely emptied. There is no privacy. You are never alone. You are surrounded day and night by the sounds and smells of the other men. You learn to sleep through the snores, the drunken mutterings, and the pained groans of men suffering from old wounds or new diseases. The hygiene is non-existent. There are no proper latrines on a ship of this size. The heads are simple, open platforms at the very bow of the ship, exposed to the wind and the spray. It is a precarious and deeply undignified process. Most of the men do not bother, preferring to relieve themselves over the side of the ship or in a dark corner of the hold. The entire vessel is permeated with a faint but constant stench of human waste. The ship itself is a breeding ground for vermin. The cargo hold is infested with rats, fat and bold for the diet of stolen grain. And your clothes, your blanket, your very hair quickly become a home for lice and fleas. You spend hours, like the other men, picking the small insects from the seams of your shirt, a small losing battle against an enemy that always returns. In this world of filth and confinement, you learned that the romantic image of the free pirate is a lie. You are not free. You are trapped. Trapped in a small, stinking wooden box adrift on an endless ocean, surrounded by 100 other desperate and often violent men. The only law is the law of survival. The monotony of your new life is reflected most profoundly in the food you eat. Food is no longer a source of pleasure or even comfort. It is a grim daily ritual of sustenance, a constant battle against the ever-present threat of starvation and the foulness of your own provisions. The foundation of every meal, the bedrock of your existence, is the hardtack biscuit. The ship's cook does not bake daily. At the beginning of a long voyage, hundreds, thousands of these biscuits are baked and stored in great, rough wooden barrels in the hold. They are not bread. They are thick, hard, unleavened wafers made of nothing more than flour, water, and salt, and then baked until they are as hard and as dense as a piece of wood. They are designed not for taste, but for longevity, to resist the damp and the rot of the sea for months on end. To eat one is a laborious process in itself. You cannot simply bite into it. To do so would be to risk breaking a tooth. First, you must break the biscuit apart, usually with the heavy pommel of your knife or a small iron belaying pin, the sharp crack of the impact a familiar sound in the 'tween deck. You then take the hard, chalky pieces and drop them into your tin cup, adding a splash from your daily water ration. You must wait for several minutes as the biscuit slowly soaks up the liquid, softening into a bland, tasteless, and lumpy paste, the consistency of wet sawdust. This is your bread. But the biscuits are rarely just biscuits. The barrels they are stored in are not airtight, and they are a perfect home for the ship's other smaller sailors, the weevils. The small, black insects burrow into the hard bread, their larvae, small white worms, living in the tiny tunnels they create. At first, you meticulously pick them out, your stomach turning at the sight of them. But after weeks at sea, a kind of weary acceptance sets in. The veterans of the crew have a grim joke. It is better to eat your biscuit in the dark, so you cannot see the extra meat you are getting. The taste is a mixture of stale flour and a faint, slightly nutty flavor that you try to convince yourself is not the taste of crushed insects. The other staple is the salted meat, either beef or pork, which is served 2 or 3 times a week. It comes from the great brine-filled barrels in the cargo hold, where it has been curing for months or even years. The cook uses a large iron hook to pull a great grayish-white slab of the meat from the barrel. It is tough as old leather and so saturated with salt that it makes your tongue and gums sting and burn. The salt has drawn out all of the moisture, all of the flavor, leaving behind a stringy, chewy substance that is more a memory of meat than meat itself. It is a struggle to chew and to swallow, and it leaves you with a raging, unquenchable thirst that your small water ration can do little to soothe. And then there's the water, the most precious and most dangerous commodity on the ship. It is stored in large wooden casks in the hold, and it is strictly rationed by the quartermaster, the man who, on a pirate ship, often holds more real power than the captain. You are allowed a single pint a day for drinking and another for your biscuit. The fresh, clean water that filled the casks at the start of the voyage is a distant, beautiful memory. After weeks at sea, the water has become stale and stagnant. It is not clear. It has a brownish, murky color, and a slimy, greenish film often coats the surface. It smells of rot, of algae, and of the old, damp wood from the cask. But it's all you have. You learn to drink it with your eyes closed, to hold your breath to avoid the smell, to focus only on the life-giving moisture. You learn that to complain about the water is a serious offense, a sign of weakness that can earn you a sharp rebuke or worse. This diet, this endless cycle of weevily biscuit, salty meat, and foul water begins to take its toll. You are in a constant state of low-level hunger. You dream of food, not of grand feasts, but of simple things.
a fresh apple, a piece of soft bread, a cup of clean, cold water. The lack of proper nutrition leaves you feeling weak, your limbs heavy, your mind dull. You're a machine, and this is the low-grade fuel you are given to keep you running just barely for another day in the vast, empty, and unforgiving world of the sea.
The pirates ransack the ship, breaking into the cargo hold and bringing up the barrels of rum and the sacks of sugar. They take everything of value, the ship's instruments, the captain's personal effects, any coins or jewelry they can find on the officers. Then they turn their attention to you, the surviving crew. You are lined up on the main deck, your hands bound. The pirate captain walks down the line, his one good eye appraising each of you, not as a man, but as a potential asset. He is looking for skilled men, a carpenter, a cooper, a navigator. He stops in front of you. He can see that you are young, strong, and accustomed to the life of a sailor. He gives you a grim, humorless smile that reveals a row of yellow, broken teeth. He offers you the choice. "You can join us," he says, his voice a low growl. "Live a short life, but a merry one, a life of plunder and freedom. Or," he gestures with his cutlass to the distant, hazy shape of a small, uninhabited island on the horizon, "you can be left there, with a bottle of water and your own thoughts." It is not a choice. To be marooned is a sentence of slow, certain death by thirst or starvation. You look at the hard, merciless faces of the pirates. You look at the bodies of your own captain and crewmates lying in pools of blood on the deck. And you look at the endless, indifferent ocean. The dream of a new life in Virginia is dead. It has been replaced by a new, more brutal reality. You are a sailor on a merchant ship no longer. With a hoarse, trembling voice that you do not recognize as your own, you make the only choice you can. You choose to become a pirate.
You soon learn that the Pirate Code is not a collection of abstract principles. It is a living, breathing document, and its laws are enforced with a swift and brutal efficiency. A few days after you take the oath, a dispute breaks out between two of the older, more experienced pirates. It starts, as most disputes do, over something small, a perceived insult, a stolen plug of tobacco. But in the close, oppressive atmosphere of the 'tween deck, small grievances can quickly fester into violent hatred. The argument, which begins as a series of low, angry whispers, quickly escalates into a shouting match, but before the two men can come to blows, the quartermaster, Black Bill, intervenes. He does not shout. He does not need to. His presence is enough. He simply steps between the two men, his one good eye fixing each of them in turn with a cold, hard stare. The argument dies instantly. "You know the articles," Black Bill says, his voice a low growl. "No fighting on the ship. You will settle this on shore. The next time we make landfall, you will have your duel." And that is it. The matter is settled. The two men, who were ready to kill each other a moment before, now sullenly retreat to opposite ends of the ship. They will have to live and work alongside each other for weeks or even months, their hatred simmering in a forced silent truce until they are finally allowed to settle their differences with a pistol and a cutlass. You witness another, more severe punishment a week later. A young sailor, one of the other new recruits from the Good Intent, is caught stealing a small amount of rum from the ship's stores. He is brought before the entire crew on the main deck. The captain presides, but it is the quartermaster who acts as the judge. The boy is found guilty by a quick, informal vote of the crew. The punishment is prescribed by the articles, 39 lashes. He is stripped to the waist and tied to the mainmast, his arms stretched high above his head. Two of the strongest sailors are chosen to administer the flogging. They use the cat-o'-nine-tails, a vicious whip with 9 knotted leather cords. The first blow lands with a sound like a wet cloth slapping against meat. A series of dark red welts instantly appear on the boy's back. He cries out, a thin, high-pitched scream of pure agony. The second blow lands, then the third. The other sailors watch in a grim, silent circle. There is no pleasure in their faces, no sense of cruel enjoyment. This is not a spectacle. It is a necessary and brutal piece of shipboard justice. By the 10th lash, the boy's back is a raw, bleeding mess. By the 20th, he has lost consciousness, but the punishment continues until the full 39 lashes have been delivered. He is then cut down, a limp, broken thing, and dragged back to the 'tween deck, where the ship's carpenter, who also serves as its surgeon, will tend to his wounds with a mixture of tar and salt water. He will likely die from the infection, but the law of the ship has been satisfied. You learn a valuable lesson. The freedom of a pirate is not the freedom to do as you please. It is the freedom from the arbitrary, often unjust laws of kings and naval officers. But it is replaced by a new and in many ways more terrifying form of justice, the swift, brutal, and democratic justice of your own peers. You're not a citizen of a kingdom. You are a member of a wolf pack, and the pack has its own unforgiving and bloody rules. You soon learn that the power on a pirate ship is a strange and fragile thing, a constant shifting balance between two key figures, the captain and the quartermaster. The captain, a man named Jedediah Horn, is the absolute master of the ship in times of battle. His word is law when there is a prize to be taken, his authority unquestioned. He is a man of decisive, brutal action, a skilled navigator, and a fearsome fighter. But his power ends the moment the chase is over. In all other matters, the distribution of food and water, the settling of disputes, the administration of justice, it is the quartermaster, Black Bill, who holds the true power. He is the voice of the crew, the guardian of the articles, the man who ensures that every pirate, from the captain down to the lowest ship's boy, receives his fair share and no more. It is a system of divided power designed to prevent the rise of a tyrant, a system born of the crew's own bitter experience with the absolute and often cruel authority of naval and merchant captains. This strange, brutal form of democracy is put to the test a few weeks into your journey. A prize is spotted on the horizon, a fat, slow-moving merchant ship. The crew is a buzz of excitement. The hunt begins. Captain Horn is in his element, shouting orders from the quarterdeck, his voice a powerful roar that cuts through the wind. The ship comes alive under his command, every man performing his duty with a swift, practiced efficiency. The chase is long, but you are faster. You gain on the merchant ship. The cannons are loaded, the cutlasses are sharpened, the grappling hooks are made ready. The moment of truth is at hand. But then something unexpected happens. The merchant ship is not a simple, unarmed vessel. As you draw closer, you see the gun ports open and the dark, menacing snouts of a dozen cannons are revealed. It is a wolf in sheep's clothing, a heavily armed ship, perhaps a privateer or a navy vessel in disguise. The mood on the deck of the Sea Venture changes instantly. The excited chatter is replaced by a tense, nervous silence. To attack now would be a foolish and likely fatal gamble. You're outgunned. But Captain Horn is a man of immense pride and aggression. He wants to fight. He roars at the men to prepare for battle. But then Black Bill, the quartermaster, steps forward. "The odds are against us, Captain," he says, his voice a low growl. "The prize is not worth the risk." "And who are you to question my command?" Horn bellows, his face a mask of fury. "I am the voice of the crew," Black Bill replies, his one good eye fixed on the captain. "And the crew did not sign on to die for a fool's pride. We will put it to a vote." It is a moment of profound and shocking tension, the two most powerful men on the ship locked in a battle of wills. But the code is the code. A vote must be held. Black Bill turns to the assembled crew. "All those in favor of the attack, show your hand," he shouts. A few of the younger, more hot-headed pirates raise their hands. "All those in favor of breaking off the chase." A forest of hands goes up, your own included. The vote is not even close. The crew has spoken. Captain Horn stands for a moment, his face a thundercloud of rage. He looks as if he is about to explode. But then he gives a short, sharp, and defeated nod. He turns to the helmsman. "Bring us about," he grunts. The ship slowly turns away from the prize. The battle is averted. You have just witnessed the strange, brutal, and deeply practical democracy of the pirates in action. It is a system born not of ideals, but of a shared and desperate desire for survival.
Weeks pass. The world remains an unchanging, monotonous landscape of gray water and gray sky. The ship rises and falls, the timbers groan, the wind whispers in the rigging. The routine of the ship, the meager meals, the constant dampness, the ever-present hunger, becomes your entire reality. The memory of land, of a world that does not move, begins to feel like a distant dream, a story from another life. The boredom is a physical thing, a heavy, leaden weight in your soul. Then, one afternoon, a cry from the lookout high above in the crow's nest, a sound that shatters the monotony like a pane of glass. "Sail ho!" The words are electric. A surge of raw, primal energy rushes through the 'tween deck. The lethargic, half-dead men are instantly transformed. Faces that were blank with despair are now sharp with a mixture of greed and fear. This is the moment they have been waiting for. This is the only reason they endure this miserable existence, the hunt. You join the frantic rush to the main deck. The air is cool and smells of salt. After the stale, fetid air below, it is a welcome shock to the system. You see it. On the horizon, a small, dark speck. A ship. The captain, Jedediah Horn, is on the quarterdeck, a spyglass pressed to his one good eye. He is a different man now. The sullen, often drunken man who paced the decks during the long, boring weeks is gone, replaced by a creature of pure, focused energy. "She's a merchantman," he roars, his voice a powerful instrument that cuts through the wind. "A fat one by the look of her. Do your stations, you dogs. Let's see if you've forgotten how to earn your keep." The ship, which had been a slow, sluggish beast, awakens. The sailors, who had been listless and apathetic, now move with a swift, practiced efficiency. You are caught up in the controlled chaos. Orders are shouted, ropes are pulled, the great patched sails are trimmed to catch every last breath of wind. The ship heels over, its wooden hull groaning in protest, and begins to pick up speed, cutting a clean white wake through the gray water. The chase is on. The next few hours are a masterclass in the art of sailing. Captain Horn is a brilliant, instinctive navigator. He seems to feel the wind, to understand the subtle currents of the sea. He shouts a constant stream of orders, and the ship responds like a living thing, a great hunting beast closing in on its prey. Your own role is a small but vital one. You are part of the gun crew for one of the ship's main cannons. Under the direction of the master gunner, a grim, silent man with powder burns on his face and hands, you begin the slow, laborious process of preparing the weapon. You sponge out the barrel to extinguish any lingering embers. You ram home the charge of black powder. You load the cannonball, a heavy iron sphere of death. The work is heavy, and your hands are clumsy, but the adrenaline, the pure, raw excitement of the chase courses through your veins, banishing all thoughts of fatigue. As you draw closer to the merchant ship, you can see the details more clearly. It is, as the captain predicted, a fat, slow-moving vessel, heavy in the water, its hull piled high with cargo. You can see the small, frantic figures of its crew on the deck running in a state of panic. They have seen your black flag. They know what is coming. The first shot is a signal, a warning. The master gunner gives the order. A sailor touches a slow-burning match to the touch-hole of the cannon. There is a deafening, concussive boom that shakes the entire ship, and a thick cloud of acrid white smoke erupts, momentarily blinding you. You see the cannonball skip across the water just in front of the merchant ship's bow. It is a shot designed not to hit, but to terrify. The merchant ship, as you had hoped, is not a warship. It does not return fire. It is a sheep, and you are the wolves. The chase is almost over. The moment of savage, bloody violence is about to begin.
The Sea Venture closes the distance with the merchant ship, pulling alongside it with a sickening, grinding crunch of wood on wood. The moment for cannons is over. The moment for steel and blood has arrived. The pirate captain, Jedediah Horn, is the first over the railing. He is no longer just a navigator. He is a warrior, a berserker. He lets out a great roaring cry, a sound of pure, unrestrained violence, and leaps from the railing of his own ship onto the deck of the merchantman. In one hand he holds a heavy, curved cutlass, in the other a cocked and primed flintlock pistol. The rest of the pirate crew swarms after him, a wave of desperate, screaming men. You are caught up in the tide, your own heart pounding in your ears, a mixture of terror and a strange, exhilarating bloodlust coursing through your veins. You draw your own cutlass, its weight unfamiliar and clumsy in your hand, and you leap onto the other deck. The resistance from the merchant crew is brief and pathetic. They are sailors, not soldiers. They are outnumbered and outmatched. A few of them try to fight back with hatchets or belaying pins, but they are quickly cut down. The fight, if you can call it that, is a short, brutal, and chaotic affair. The air is filled with the deafening roar of pistols fired at close range, the sharp metallic clash of steel on steel, and the wet chopping sound of a cutlass meeting flesh. The deck, which was a place of ordered work a few moments ago, is now a slick red abattoir. The screams of the wounded and the dying are a high, thin counterpoint to the savage, triumphant shouts of the pirates. You find yourself face to face with a young sailor from the merchant ship. He is no older than yourself, his face a pale, terrified mask. He holds a small hatchet, but he holds it awkwardly, as if he does not know how to use it. You see the terror in his eyes, and in that moment you do not see an enemy. You see a reflection of yourself, of the boy you were just a few weeks ago. But there is no time for pity. There is no time for thought. Another pirate, a huge man with a scarred face, brushes past you and brings his axe down on the young sailor's head with a sound like a splitting log. The boy crumbles to the deck without a sound. The battle is over in less than 5 minutes. The surviving members of the merchant crew have thrown down their weapons and are on their knees begging for mercy. The pirate captain, his cutlass dripping with blood, surveys the scene with a cold, professional eye. The immediate, hot-blooded violence is over. Now the cold, calculated business begins. The prisoners are rounded up, the wounded are given no quarter, they are dispatched with a ruthless efficiency and thrown overboard. The able-bodied men are given the same choice that you were given: join the crew or be left to die on the next deserted island. Most of them, their faces a mixture of fear and a strange, dazed relief, choose to join the crew. While this is happening, the other pirates are ransacking the ship. They are not looking for a single great treasure chest filled with gold coins. That is a fantasy. They are looking for anything of value. They break into the cargo hold with axes, the shouts of triumph echoing from below. They bring up barrels of rum, sacks of sugar, bolts of fine cloth, all of it to be sold in the pirate havens of Tortuga or Nassau. They search the captain's cabin, breaking open his sea chest, taking his navigational instruments, his fine clothes, his personal letters. They are like a pack of hungry wolves, tearing the carcass of their prey apart, taking every last scrap of meat from the bones. The adrenaline of the short, brutal battle fades as quickly as it came, replaced by a new kind of energy, a frantic, greedy industry. The prize is taken, and now it must be consumed. The pirates swarm over the captured merchant ship, the Good Intent, their initial chaotic violence replaced by a methodical, almost businesslike efficiency. Under the direction of the quartermaster, Black Bill, the process of transferring the cargo begins. It is a slow, back-breaking labor that will last for the rest of the day. You are put to work with the other men, forming a human chain between the two ships. The vessels are lashed together, their wooden hulls groaning and scraping against each other with the gentle swell of the sea. Barrel after barrel of rum and sugar is hauled up from the dark, cavernous hold of the merchantman. The work is heavy, your muscles, already weak from the poor diet and the long weeks of inactivity, screaming in protest. The barrels are awkward, heavy, and slick with grime. You work under the hot Caribbean sun. your body drenched in sweat, your hands raw from the rough wood and the coarse ropes. As you work, you see the true nature of the prize. There are no great iron-bound chests filled with Spanish gold and silver coins. There are no boxes of glittering jewels. The romantic treasure of the storybooks is nowhere to be found. The cargo of the good intent is mundane, practical, and in many ways a deep disappointment. It is sugar, it is rum, it is tobacco, it is bolts of simple linen cloth. These are valuable goods to be sold in the pirate havens of Nassau or Tortuga, but they are not the stuff of legend, they are the stuff of commerce. While the cargo is being transferred, another group of pirates are stripping the ship itself of anything useful. They take the sails, the ropes, the spare anchors, the tools from the carpenter's shop, the navigational instruments from the captain's cabin. They even take the personal belongings of the dead sailors, a grim and necessary scavenging. A good pair of boots, a warm wool coat, a sharp knife. These are valuable commodities in a world where you own nothing but what you can carry. The process is overseen by the quartermaster. He stands on the deck of the captured ship, a small leather-bound book in one hand, making a careful inventory of every single item. Every barrel of rum, every sack of sugar, every coil of rope is accounted for. This is not a chaotic free-for-all. This is a business transaction. Finally, as the sun begins to set, the work is done. The good intent is a hollowed-out, empty shell, a ghost ship stripped of its purpose. They do not sink it. A captured ship is a valuable asset in itself. A small prized crew, a fanful of the more experienced pirates, is put aboard her, with orders to sail her to an hidden cove where she can be refitted, repainted, and reborn as a pirate vessel herself, or sold. The two ships part company, the Sea Venture continuing on its course, the captured prize a smaller, slower shadow behind it. The crew of the Sea Venture gathers on the main deck. The mood is not one of joyous celebration, but of a weary, business-like anticipation. It is time to divide the spoils. The quartermaster, Black Bill, stands before the assembled crew. He consults his ledger. He announces the estimated value of the cargo that they have taken. A low murmur of a mixture of satisfaction and disappointment ripples through the crowd. It is a good haul, but not a great one. It is not the kind of prize that will make them rich men overnight. It is enough to keep them in rum and food for a few more months, enough for a few wild nights of debauchery in the next port. And then they will have to go out and do it all over again. The division of the plunder is a slow, democratic, and deeply serious ritual. The articles of the ship are read aloud once more. The captain, Jedediah Horn, and the quartermaster, Black Bill, receive 2 shares each. The other officers, the master gunner, the boatswain, the carpenter, receive 1.5 shares, and you and every other common sailor receive 1 single share. There is a separate, special fund set aside for those who were wounded in the brief bloody battle. A man who lost an eye will receive an extra 100 pieces of 8, a man who lost a leg 200. It is a brutal but fair system of compensation. But there is no gold to be distributed today. The true wealth is in the cargo, and that will not be realized until it can be sold. What is distributed today are the small personal items, the immediate spoils of the raid. The captain's fine clothes are held up, and the men who want them make a claim. If there is a dispute, it is settled by a quick game of dice. A silver pocket watch is won by a young sailor with a lucky throw. A pair of fine leather boots goes to an old one-legged pirate who has been shoeless for months. You receive nothing. You are a new recruit, and you have not yet earned the right to claim a share of these smaller personal treasures. Your only reward is your single theoretical share of the cargo, a promise of a small amount of money in some distant, dangerous port, weeks or months from now. As the division of the spoils comes to an end, the first barrel of the captured rum is broken open. A cheer finally goes up from the crew. The tension and the weariness of the day are washed away in a flood of raw, cheap alcohol. The men drink deeply, their voices growing louder, their laughter coarser. But you do not feel like celebrating. You look at the drunken, shouting men around you. You think of the dead sailor on the deck of the Good Intent, the boy who looked just like you, and you realize with a chilling certainty
that the true price of this small temporary victory was not paid in coin, but in blood.
After the capture, the mood on the ship changes. The tense, hungry monotony is replaced by a restless, drunken anticipation. The prize has been taken. Now, it is time to spend it. The course is set not for a hidden cove or deserted island, but for a place that is, in its own way, even more dangerous. The pirate haven of Nassau. The journey takes another week, and it is a week of slow, simmering anarchy. The discipline of the chase is gone. The rum, taken from the captured merchant ship, flows freely. The men are loud, argumentative, their days a blur of drinking, gambling, and sleeping off their hangovers on the sun-baked deck. Fights break out, brief, brutal scuffles that are quickly broken up by the quartermaster, but the threat of violence is always there, a constant, low hum beneath the surface of the drunken revelry. Finally, you see it on the horizon. Not a single lonely ship, but a forest of masts. Not a pristine coastline, but a low-lying island, a jumble of ramshackle wooden buildings and makeshift forts surrounding a protected harbor. This is Nassau, the capital of the Pirate Republic. As you sail into the harbor, you see that it is filled with ships of every size and description, their black flags hanging limp in the hot, humid air. The town itself is not a town. It is a temporary, chaotic encampment of taverns, brothels, and warehouses, a place dedicated to the single-minded pursuit of vice and the quick, efficient disposal of stolen goods. The moment the anchor is dropped, the crew, who have been trapped on the ship for months, descend upon the town like a plague of locusts. The carefully accumulated discipline of the sea evaporates in an instant. You follow them ashore. The streets, if you can call them that, are rivers of mud and filth, crowded with pirates from a dozen different ships, all of them armed, all of them drunk. The air is thick with the smell of cheap rum, of roasting pork, of unwashed bodies, and of a kind of raw, desperate, and dangerous freedom. The next few days are a blur of noise, of violence, and of a kind of joyless, frantic pleasure-seeking. Your share of the prize, the money from the sale of the sugar and the cloth, is paid out to you. It is more money than you have ever held in your life, a small pile of silver and gold coins that feels impossibly heavy in your hands, and you spend it as quickly as you get it. You spend it in the taverns, dark, smoky places where the rum is served in dirty mugs and every conversation seems to be a shouted argument. You spend it on food, on great, greasy plates of roasted pork and turtle meat, a welcome and shocking change from the endless diet of biscuit and salted beef. You spend it on games of dice, losing a week's worth of earnings on a single unlucky throw. You watch the other men. You see their hard-won plunder, the result of months of hardship and risk, disappear in a matter of days, poured down their throats or lost on the turn of a card. This is the pirate life, a short, brutal burst of violence, followed by a brief, frantic period of debauchery, followed by a long, hungry return to the sea. It is a cycle of desperation, a snake eating its own tail. The dream of Nassau, a brief, chaotic festival of spending and forgetting, dissolves as quickly as it began. The silver and gold coins, which felt so heavy and real in your hands, have vanished, traded for cheap rum, for the fleeting company of women whose faces you cannot remember, for losing throws of the dice in smoke-filled taverns. The frantic energy of the port town evaporates, leaving behind a familiar and much deeper sense of despair. The crew stumbles back to the ship, not as a triumphant brotherhood, but as a collection of sick, hungover, and resentful men. Fights break out over imagined slights, the brief camaraderie of the chase replaced by a sullen, irritable tension. The return to the sea is not a departure for a new adventure. It is a retreat, a return to the floating wooden prison, the only home you have. And it is back in the familiar, cramped, and filthy confines of the sea venture that the true, invisible enemies of the pirate life begin to make their presence known.
The first is the rot of the body. The few days of excess in Nassau, a brief exposure to the diseases of the shore, begin to bear their bitter fruit. You see a man, a strong, boisterous pirate, suddenly fall ill. It begins with a deep chill that racks his body, his teeth chattering uncontrollably, even in the stifling Caribbean heat. Then comes the fever, a raging fire that leaves his skin burning to the touch, his eyes wide and delirious. His skin begins to take on a strange yellowish hue. It is yellow fever, the yellow jack, a death sentence on the open sea. There is no cure. There is no doctor. The ship's carpenter, a man whose medical knowledge is limited to sawing off limbs, can do nothing. The man is isolated, left to die in his own filth in a dark corner of the hold, his delirious cries a constant, terrifying reminder to the rest of the crew of their own mortality. Another slower, and in many ways more horrifying sickness begins to spread through the crew. It is the legacy of their time in port. A man begins to complain of sores that will not heal. You see the quiet, shameful way he tends to them, the despair in his eyes. In this world, there is no cure for such diseases. There is only a slow, creeping, and inevitable decay. But the most relentless and democratic of all the ship's diseases is scurvy. It is a sickness born of the sea itself, of the endless monotonous diet of salted meat and hard biscuit. It begins subtly. A profound and constant lethargy, a weariness that is not just in your muscles, but in your very soul. Your joints begin to ache, a deep, dull pain that never goes away. Then, the more obvious signs appear. You notice that your gums are becoming soft, spongy, and a dark, purplish color. When you chew the hard biscuit, they bleed freely, a foul, metallic taste filling your mouth. Your teeth, which were once strong, begin to feel loose in their sockets. Old scars, long since healed over, mysteriously begin to reopen, turning into weeping, ugly sores. You watch the slow, horrifying decline of one of the older pirates, a man named Finn. He has been at sea for years, and his body has no reserves left to fight the sickness. He becomes too weak to leave his bunk. His legs swell to twice their normal size, the skin a dark, bruised color. His breath is a foul, putrid thing. He is not a man anymore. He is a piece of slowly rotting flesh. And you know with a chilling certainty that if this voyage does not end soon, his fate will be your own. The only doctor on board is the ship's carpenter, a man named Sauni. He is a master of wood, but a butcher of men. His only tools are his saw, his axe, and a pot of boiling tar. You witness his work firsthand. A young pirate, during the last battle, was wounded in the leg by a musket ball. The wound, in the hot, filthy conditions of the ship, has become infected. The leg is now swollen, the skin a dark, angry red, and the smell of rot hangs about him. The leg must come off, or the poison will kill him. The surgery is a public, brutal spectacle on the main deck. The boy is given a full bottle of rum, the only anesthetic available. 4 of the strongest men are tasked with holding him down. Sauni, the carpenter, takes out his tools. He has a small, sharp saw, the kind he uses for cutting wood. He has a pot of tar, bubbling and smoking over a small brazier. The boy, his eyes wide open with a mixture of drunkenness and sheer terror, begins to scream as the men pin him to the deck. Sauni does not hesitate. He places the saw against the boy's thigh and he begins to cut. The sound is a wet, grating noise, the sound of a saw on bone. The boy's screams are a high, thin, animalistic shriek that is almost overshadowed by the sound of the saw. When the leg is finally severed, Sauni takes a red-hot iron from the brazier and presses it against the stump. There is a sickening hiss, and the smell of burning flesh fills the air. This is the cauterization, the only way to stop the bleeding. The boy, mercifully, has lost consciousness. He will almost certainly die from the shock or the infection, but the brutal surgery has been performed. This is the reality of medicine on a pirate ship. It is a world of crude, desperate measures, a world where the line between healing and butchery is terrifyingly thin.
The days of frantic, joyless debauchery in Nassau bleed into a week, and then two. The silver and gold coins which felt so heavy and real in your hands have vanished, traded for cheap, burning rum, for the fleeting, hollow company of women whose faces you cannot remember, for losing throws of the dice in the dark, smoke-filled corners of taverns. The frantic energy of the port town evaporates, leaving behind a familiar and much deeper sense of despair. The promise of a merry life has revealed itself for what it truly is, a brief, manic dance on the edge of a cliff. The crew stumbles back to the ship, not as a triumphant brotherhood, but as a collection of sick, hungover, and resentful men. Fights break out over imagined slights, the brief camaraderie of the chase replaced by a sullen, irritable tension. The return to the sea is not a departure for a new adventure, it is a retreat, a return to the floating wooden prison, the only home you have. Your pockets are empty, your body is weak, and the great empty ocean awaits. It is back in the familiar, cramped, and filthy confines of the sea venture that the true, invisible enemies of the pirate life begin to make their presence known, their victory now almost certain. The diseases contracted in port, in the unsanitary brothels and taverns, begin to bear their bitter fruit. The slow, creeping decay of scurvy, kept at bay for a time by the fresh food of the island, returns with a vengeance. The crew, which was a force of over 100 men when you captured the Good Intent, is now a shadow of its former self. Men begin to die. Not in glorious battle, but in the dark, stinking confines of the 'tween deck. Their bodies racked with fever, their minds lost to delirium. Every few days, the grim ritual of the burial at sea is repeated. A body, wrapped in a piece of old sailcloth, a cannonball at its feet, is slid into the indifferent, blue-green water. There is no ceremony now, no prayers, just a grim, functional disposal of the dead. The ship itself seems to be dying. The sails are more patched than whole. The wood of the hull is riddled with shipworm, and a constant, wearying work at the pumps is required to keep the sea from reclaiming its own. The atmosphere on board is one of paranoia and a growing, desperate fear. The men are no longer the bold, swaggering sea rovers of the stories. They are trapped animals, their numbers dwindling, their options running out. It is this desperation that forces the captain's hand. Another prize must be taken, and soon, or you will all perish from sickness and starvation. One morning the cry of "Sail ho!" comes from the lookout, but this time it does not bring a surge of excitement. It brings a cold, hard knot of fear. The ship on the horizon is not a slow, fat merchantman. It is a large, sleek, and fast-moving frigate. It flies the flag of the Royal Navy. It is a wolf, and you are the sickly, wounded sheep. The logical thing to do would be to run, to try to use your knowledge of the shallow, treacherous waters of the Caribbean to escape. But you are out of food, you are almost out of water, and you are out of time. Captain Horn, his face a grim mask, makes the decision. It is not a decision based on strategy, but on pure, raw desperation. You will fight. The preparation for battle is not the confident, energetic scene of the last chase. It is a slow, somber ritual. The men move with a weary resignation, their faces pale. The cannons are loaded, but the movements are sluggish. The cutlasses are sharpened, but there is no fire in the men's eyes. The naval frigate closes the distance with a terrible professional efficiency. It is a true warship, a machine designed for the single purpose of destruction. It does not fire a warning shot. It fires a full, devastating broadside. The world explodes. The sound is a physical blow, a deafening, concussive roar that is nothing like the small cannons you have known. The deck of your small sloop erupts in a shower of splinters and death. A cannonball, the size of a man's head, smashes through the wooden railing, sending a spray of 1,000 sharp wooden daggers across the deck. You see men fall not with a clean wound, but simply torn apart, their bodies mangled and broken. You are frozen in a state of pure, abject terror. This is not a battle. It is an execution. Your own cannons fire back, a pathetic, impotent response. The naval frigate maneuvers, its movements precise and deadly, and delivers another broadside, this one aimed at your mainmast. You hear a sound like the cracking of a great bone, a deep, groaning, splintering noise, and the great mast, the very spine of your ship, topples down, crashing down onto the deck in a tangled, chaotic mess of wood, rope, and canvas, crushing several men under its weight. Your ship is crippled. You are dead in the water. The fight, such as it was, is over. The soldiers from the frigate, the Royal Marines, board your ship. They are not like you. They are professional killers, their faces calm, their movements efficient. They sweep across the deck with their bayonets and muskets, a disciplined wall of steel. The surviving pirates, those who are not already dead or dying, throw down their weapons. You are captured. The final chapter of your life as a pirate begins. You are in irons, your hands and feet shackled. You are transferred to the naval frigate, a world of clean decks, of order, of a discipline that is even more rigid and unforgiving than that of the pirates. The journey to Port Royal, Jamaica, the seat of the Admiralty Court, is a blur of misery. You are kept in the hold, in the dark, with the other captured pirates, the stench of your own fear and despair your only companion. The trial is a brief, formal affair. You are stood in a cage in a hot, stuffy courtroom. A white-wigged judge reads the charges against you: piracy, murder, robbery on the high seas. You are not asked to speak. There is no defense. The verdict is a foregone conclusion. You are found guilty. The sentence is death. You spend your last days in a stone cell, listening to the sound of the waves and the cry of the gulls, the sounds that were once the soundtrack to your life of misery, now a cruel reminder of a world you will never see again. You think of the poster in Bristol, the promise of a new life in Virginia. You think of the short, brutal, and utterly joyless life you have led since. The short life and a merry one was a lie. It was just a short life. On the final morning you are led from your cell. You see the gallows, a stark, simple wooden frame against the bright blue Caribbean sky. You are made to stand on the trapdoor, the rough hempen noose placed around your neck. You look out at the crowd that has gathered to watch you die. Their faces are a blur of curiosity and indifference. You close your eyes. You do not pray. You simply wait. And in the final, silent moment, you think of the endless gray ocean, the creak of the ship, the taste of salt and rum. And you realize that your life did not end here, at the end of a rope. It ended the moment you stepped aboard the Sea Venture and sailed away from the world of men.